In this video, I'm going to explain to you how to assemble a computer. And the components we're going to need is a computer case, and where we're going to put all the components. We're going to need also a video board or a video card that, in this case, it's a gaming video card. We're going to use also a solid state device as our hard disk to store information. We're going to need memory SIMs. DDR4s, we're going to need a cooler. Also, of course, we're going to need a motherboard that connects all the components, a processor, in this case an i9, and a power supply. We will need also a screwdriver and some rubber gloves. In order to calculate the power supply you will need, there's a tool in UX that you can find in the links below this video. The power supply has several cables that need to be plugged in the back of the unit, and from there they will run into the case and will be connected to the motherboard. Once that you have connected the wires in the back, then you want to install the power supply inside the case. For this you need to open the back of the case so you can insert the power supply and attach 4 screws to fix the power supply to the case. As you can see here in the back, I have connected all the cables that came with the unit. As we saw in the image before, they are in the back and they are running into the case, and so we can connect them to the motherboard. For installing the motherboard, first we need to attach the base of the fan and the pump to the motherboard. This is the cooler unit base. It goes in the back. It's important that you verify the side where it goes. The shape is the same shape as the plate. Then in the case you will find some little screws that are the base for the motherboard. It is important that those are installed, because if you don't have those installed, then your motherboard is going to touch the case and it's going to short circuit and you're going to fry the motherboard. So make sure that those are installed before you install the motherboard. You also need the plate that goes in the back of the case to cover the connections, and make sure that when you install them, look at the connections and make sure that you installed it in the right position, the right orientation in the back, according to how your motherboard is layout. You just put it in the space, then it has little tabs that when you press them, they will press against the sides and it will hold it in place. The motherboard has different sizes, and each one of the different sizes of the motherboard are written in the case. Make sure that you install the screws, or you have the screws that are needed for your motherboard. Once that you put the motherboard in place, you need to install the screws that will attach it to those little inserts in the case. They also have a washer. Make sure that you install the washer, and use a screwdriver just to fix your motherboard to the case. In order to verify that we have the right connectors, we will use the motherboard manual. Here you have all the connectors and a description of what goes connected there. This is a power supply connector. That's the biggest connector on the motherboard. And look at the shape of the pins that you have on both ends at the motherboard and also at the connector, and make sure you orient them the right way. An easy way to orient the connector is to check the shapes of the pins and the shape of the connector on the motherboard. Make sure that the square ones are aligned with the square ones and round ones with the round ones. Once that you have the connector in the right orientation, go ahead and slide it into the motherboard. It should go pretty easily. You don't need to apply a lot of force. Once that the connector is in, you will hear a click sound. There is another power connector. That one is the power for the CPU. It has a different shape, and if you look at the connector, it will have a hole that is closed. Just make sure that you orient that to the connector that you have on the motherboard, and go ahead and connect it. You will also find an audio connector that will go only in one way, because there's one block hole in that connector. Look for the audio connector in the motherboard. Look at that block hole, and then look at the pins in your motherboard, and you will find a connector where it fits. You will also find a USB 3.0 connector. It, as usual, has one hole that is blocked to give you the right orientation. Look for a connector that has that shape in the motherboard, and you will see also that it has a little tab on the side. Make sure that the tab is aligned in the motherboard. You will have also multiple power connectors for the fans and for the pump. Make sure that those two little tabs, they go in the power connectors. They should be marked as fan power, and your motherboard will have multiple. It will say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You can use them independently, and also you can plug the pump from your cooling system. Depending on the model of your motherboard, you may have 6 connectors for fans, or less than 6, or more than 6. Just check your manual and your motherboard specification. Now we're going to install the memory. For installing the memory, each one of the SIMs, you will see that they have a little notch that goes in certain orientation, and you need to open the tabs for the slot where you're going to install them. So make sure you open the tabs, and make sure that the little notch is oriented the right way, right? So it goes the right way and it fits. You don't need to force it a lot into the slot. Once that you have it there, press both ends until you hear a click sound, and you verify that the tabs can be closed. So close them, and make sure that you check your motherboard specification to make sure that you are installing the memory according to the recommended banks. It has 4 banks, and there's a recommendation for the motherboard to which ones to install first. Follow the instructions in the manual. The CPU is the central process unit of your computer. It has the socket where it needs to go. The socket has very thin wires, so make sure you don't touch them, and make sure that you align the CPU with the little notches it has. It's very easy to try to install the wrong CPU in a socket that does not correspond. So make sure that when you buy the motherboard, the socket matches what your CPU socket is for. There are sockets 1200, 1155, and there are several different sockets. You need to make sure that your CPU is compatible. You install it there. You make sure that the notches are aligned and that the CPU is aligned in the socket, that nothing is out of place. Then you just put the little cover down, and then you close the lever. You feel that there's any force that you need to apply to it, extra force. You check it, open it again, make sure that it is in the right position, the right location. Move it a little bit around to make sure that it fits perfectly in the socket. Close it, and you apply a little bit of force to it, and then when you close it, then the little black cover will pop up, and you can remove it, right? That's you don't need that part. Now we will proceed to install the screws for the base of the cooler. So attach those screws to the base that you previously attached in the back of the motherboard. Make sure that they are the right size and the right orientation. Check your cooler manual. Now we will install the solid state device we're using as a hard disk. Look at the gray connector near to where the screwdriver is. I'm going to remove the little screw that you have there. That one is for holding the solid state device in place, and that is a PCE connector for the hard disk. Take the solid state device in an angle around 30 degrees and then push it into the slot. It should go in easily and all the way in. You shouldn't see any part of the pins outside. Then press it against the motherboard until you are able to put the screw into the hole that you previously removed it from. Use the screw to attach the PCE memory, the solid state device, into the motherboard. Make sure it goes all the way in and it's secure. Now we will proceed to install the graphics process unit, or GPU. There's a slot in the motherboard. Check all the slots. All the slots, they have numbers next to it. They say PCE and then they have a number. Look for the one that has the highest number, because that means that's the fastest one, and you want your graphic process unit to be installed in the fastest one you have. Press it all the way in. Make sure that the tabs, they go up. Once that you press it all the way, you should hear a little clicking sound. Before you install it, make sure that the tabs are open. And then take the PCE power connector and insert it in on the side of the graphics process unit, the GPU. After you install the CPU, there are two screws that you need to attach at the front of the case to make sure that the GPU unit is not moving. Attach those and it's pretty simple. We will proceed now to install the cooler unit on top of the processor. Align the little notches with the screws there and press it all the way down. Also, you're gonna have to check your manual, because there's an order in the one that you should put the nuts in and tighten them. There's an order that you need to follow according to the instructions. So make sure that you check the alignment of the CPU. Take a look at the circuits that are around and match it with the picture in your manual, and then attach the little nuts to the around the cooler unit. The last step is to make sure that all the cables are connected. You have the memory, you have the cooler, the fans, all the connectors are plugged in, they are secured, that you have all the case connectors connected to your motherboard, the ones that apply, the ones that are fitted by your motherboard. And then check in your motherboard manual the LEDs that will show the status of the motherboard, to make sure that when you start it, those LEDs are lighting according to what is supposed. At the beginning you will see all of them lighting. When they light, it means that there's an error, but that's because it's your first configuration. You will wait around 1 or 2 minutes and they should go away. They should turn off. Once that you turn on your computer, you should not see any, after 1 or 2 minutes, you shouldn't see any of the LED status lights turning on. You will see the LEDs for the fans, the GPU and the motherboard lighting on just normally, and you will have a screen like this that will show you that everything is running. Once that you are done assembling the computer, then the next step is to install the operating system. I have a couple videos in my channel on how to do that. Also, if you like the video, give me a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel.